Conklin owns Beck's. In 1903, it makes news because he shorted 3,400 pounds of coal, and that's the town gossip. February 25th, 1903, the town is agitated by the news that Beck's is on fire again. But this turns out to just be a false alarm because it's just some overheated furnace pipes. They end up putting out these flames with a couple buckets of water. Over the next couple of years, Beck's hosts its typical events, including medical society meetings, political events, horse sales, doctor visits, and they even host an employee appreciation party. Then, in 1907, Wetmore buys Beck's for $12,700, and he immediately decides that he wants to start painting the outside and doing some other restoration work. November 15th, 1911, Wetmore dies of tuberculosis. At this point, John Beck buys the hotel from Mrs. Wetmore. It will stay in the Beck's family for almost the next 60 years. John Beck was born January 5th, 1862, in Germany. In 1883, he moves to America, where he lives in Lyons Falls for a while. At this point, he's the superintendent of the paper company. In 1912, he moves to Mexico and immediately buys the Boyd House. August 26, 1916, John Beck goes to the hospital. He ends up staying there until September 12, 1916, so a couple weeks. On October 19th, he invites the employees to John Beck's for a free dinner. Then, in 1919, Prohibition hits, which doesn't go well for a restaurant, bar, and hotel. Unsurprisingly, on June 27, 1921, John Beck is caught with $3,000 worth of alcohol, which is the largest seizure of alcohol in the county since Prohibition started. John Beck and the bartender at this point were arrested, and both made bail, John Beck's being $2,000 and the bartender's being $1,000. This court case ends up going on for over a year. When he goes to talk to the jury, he tells them that this alcohol was bought before Prohibition started and was kept in his private residence and was never sold to anybody, so it was legal for him to have it. At the end of the court case, they actually don't end up with a verdict, so he ends up being retried later on, but at this point is let go. August 4th, 1921, a man stops at Beck's, gets a hotel room, spends the night, and then the next morning heads out. But he never ends up returning, and his body turns up at Mexico Point with a note that says that the death was intentional, but his finger is missing. Nothing ever actually comes of this, but it is kind of an odd thing that's noted in the newspapers. February 1923, they restart the trial for John Beck and the liquor. This time, John Beck is found not guilty, but he doesn't get his liquor back. This makes him pretty upset. It actually isn't until 4 years later from when the trial starts that he gets his liquor back, September 16th, 1925. Over the next few years, we have another period where not much happens. It is notable that there was a free clam bake hosted by Conklin, one of the previous owners, and also that one of the high school plays features the Boyd House. May 30th, 1935, it's reported in the newspaper that John Beck has passed away at 73 years of age. After he passes, the rest of the family takes over. His family includes Miss Catherine Beck, Miss Elizabeth Bartell, Miss Matilda Smith, Miss Isabel Beck, and Mr. John Beck Jr. In 1940, they run an article talking about Mr. Runyon, who's one of the people staying at Beck's Hotel, and he's very excited for the coming deer season. He's never got one, but this year's supposed to be a good one. At this point, the news articles do slow down, so we only have a handful over the next couple of years. February 4th, 1960, the newspaper reports that Beck's has a new sign that lights up, but that you'll know when you're at Beck's anyways, because it's such a brilliant building. August 1968, it makes the news that workers are staying at Beck's who are working on the atomic project that we now would call 9 Mile, and they've came all the way from Michigan. In 1971, we have our first pictures of Beck's with white paint along the bottom of the brick, so we know that it's painted sometime before this. Also in 1971, the article runs that Beck's is no longer in the Beck's family, and it's noted that this is the end of an era. After it's sold in 1971, the only owners noted are Richard and Welling. They own it until 1980 when they end up closing the hotel. In 1972, we get this glimpse from the newspaper that there's still tons of events going on at Beck's, including this one that's offering round and square dancing. In 1981, the Peru family takes over Beck's. During this time, they actually create 50 additional parking spaces by demolishing the old Sunoco gas station behind the building. They also do a bunch of renovations, and they note that at this time, there is 2 smaller dining rooms for private parties, a large dining room, a lounge bar area featuring weekend live entertainment, and 10 rooms upstairs for guests. At this point, we do see several articles stating that Beck's Hotel was one of the contributors of the Mexico Fire Department field days every single year. In 1987, the newspaper gives us another peek at Beck's, where it's showing the Friday and Saturday specials and how much it costs to have dinner then. While the Peru family operated the building, we know that there was lots of good food, lots of good music, and even a hair salon inside the building. One of the final things that exist from Beck's before the doors close is this Customer of the Month photo, where unfortunately Lloyd missed the photo shoot. This was in September 2000, and Beck's doors closed shortly after. Over the next 20 years, the building really falls into disarray. It has a handful of different owners, and while they do some work to the building, and it does slightly improve the appearance, a lot of the work just isn't done. The whole interior of the building has problems with the roof, and so instead of replacing the roof, they actually end up ripping this entire part out. After sitting empty for over 20 years, the building now appears more like a ghost town than what used to be the most prominent building on Main Street. We know we have some big shoes to fill, and it might take months or years, but we plan to bring Beck's back to the glory that it once was, where you can travel anywhere in the US and somebody will have heard of it. And not to mention that amazing homemade food they used to have. We can't thank the community enough for our extremely warm welcome as the new owners, and we hope to make your dreams come true with ours. This building is definitely something that we are committed to, and we can't wait to see you guys just as excited about the renovations as we are.